You finally earn more money. Your bank balance goes up. But that tight feeling in your chest never actually goes away. My name is Ely, and I spend way too much time thinking about how people make money decisions. If you're someone who struggles with feeling behind financially despite earning more, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. So let me paint you a picture. You're sitting at your desk on a Tuesday afternoon and you get the notification. Your paycheck just hit. And for a moment, maybe just a split second, you feel this little surge of relief. Like, okay, we're good. Bills are covered. We're fine. But then you open your banking app and you scroll through the balance, and that feeling just evaporates. Because somehow, even though you're making more money than you were 2 years ago, even though you got that raise or switched to a better paying job, you still feel exactly the same level of stress about money. Maybe even more stress. You look at that number and think, where does it all go? How am I not further ahead by now? And here's the uncomfortable part. You probably can't even point to what changed. You didn't buy a boat. You didn't go on some crazy spending spree. You're just living your life. But that financial anxiety, that pit in your stomach when you think about your savings account or your credit card balance, it hasn't gone anywhere. In fact, it might have gotten worse. And this is the thing that almost nobody talks about. Earning more money does not fix financial anxiety. It just doesn't. And today I'm going to explain exactly why that is, what's actually happening in your brain when you get a raise, and what you can actually do about it. Here's what most people don't realize. There's this phenomenon in behavioral economics called the hedonic treadmill, and it applies to money in ways that are almost painfully predictable. Basically, humans are incredibly good at adapting to new circumstances. You get a raise, you feel great for about 2 weeks, maybe a month if you're lucky, and then your brain just recalibrates. That new income level becomes your new normal. The satisfaction fades. But here's where it gets interesting. Your expenses don't fade. They grow. And they grow in ways that feel completely reasonable and justified in the moment. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it's one of the most destructive financial patterns that exists because it doesn't feel destructive at all. It feels like you're just finally living the life you deserve. Let me give you a concrete example. Say you're making $50,000 a year, and you get a new job that pays $65,000. That's a $15,000 annual increase. That's about $900 a month after taxes. That is real money. That should change your financial picture significantly. But here's what actually happens. First, you move to a slightly nicer apartment because, hey, you can afford an extra $200 a month in rent now, and the new place has in-unit laundry. Totally reasonable. Then you upgrade your car situation. Maybe you were driving a beater and you finally get something reliable with a monthly payment of $300. Again, completely justified. Then you start eating out a little more often because you're working harder and you deserve it. And that's another $150 a month. You upgrade your phone plan. You get a gym membership at the nicer gym. You start buying organic groceries. You subscribe to a couple more streaming services. None of these decisions feel extravagant. Every single one of them feels earned and reasonable. But you add them up and boom, you've now absorbed that entire $900 monthly increase, and you're right back where you started emotionally. Now you might be thinking, okay, but at least I'm living better now. At least I have the nicer apartment and the reliable car. And sure, that's true. Your quality of life improved in tangible ways. But here's the problem. Your financial anxiety didn't decrease. You're still living paycheck to paycheck, just at a higher income level. You still don't have an emergency fund. You're still not saving for retirement at the rate you know you should be. You're still one unexpected expense away from panic. The number got bigger, but the feeling stayed exactly the same. And according to research from the Federal Reserve, nearly 40% of Americans wouldn't be able to cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money or selling something. Think about that. $400. And 40% of people in the wealthiest country on earth can't handle it without going into debt. That statistic includes people making 6 figures, by the way. So why does this happen? Why are we so bad at converting higher income into actual financial security? Here's the thing. Our brains are not wired for modern financial systems. We evolved in environments where status and resources were visible and immediate. Our psychological reward systems are built around social comparison and immediate gratification. But money in a bank account? That doesn't trigger the same reward response. It's abstract. It's invisible. Nobody sees it. So instead, we spend money on things that are visible, things that signal status. Things that make us feel like we're doing okay compared to everyone around us. And here's where it gets really insidious. The people around us are also upgrading their lifestyles as they earn more. So the comparison point keeps moving. You get a raise, your friends get raises, everyone's going to slightly nicer restaurants and taking slightly better vacations, and you're all stuck on this treadmill together wondering why nobody feels financially secure. There's actually a term for this in sociology. It's called reference group theory. Basically, we don't evaluate our financial situation in absolute terms. We evaluate it relative to the people we consider our peers. So if you grew up middle class and now you're making $70,000 a year, you might feel pretty good if your high school friends are making $50,000. But if you work in tech and all your coworkers are making $120,000, suddenly $70,000 feels inadequate. Your actual purchasing power hasn't changed, but your psychological experience of that income is completely different based on who you're comparing yourself to. This is why people making $200,000 a year in expensive cities often feel broke. They're not broke by any objective standard. They're in the top 10% of earners nationally. But they're comparing themselves to people making $400,000 or people who inherited wealth, and in that comparison, they feel behind. Now look, I'm not saying that all lifestyle inflation is bad. Some of it represents real improvements in well-being. Having a safe car matters. Living in a place without mold matters. Eating food that's actually nutritious matters. The problem is that we're terrible at distinguishing between upgrades that genuinely improve our lives and upgrades that just feel good in the moment because they signal status or convenience. And here's what most people don't realize. Every time you inflate your lifestyle, you're not just spending money. You're also locking yourself into a higher baseline of expenses that's really hard to scale back down. That nicer apartment becomes your new normal. The idea of moving back to a cheaper place feels like failure. That car payment becomes a fixed cost you have to cover every single month, whether you're employed or not. Let me tell you about something called the ratchet effect in consumer behavior. Basically, people's consumption patterns ratchet upward easily, but they're incredibly resistant to ratcheting back down. Economists have studied this during recessions. When people lose income, they'll do almost anything to maintain their previous lifestyle. They'll drain savings, max out credit cards, take on debt, anything to avoid the psychological pain of downgrading. Because in our minds, downgrading doesn't just mean having less stuff. It means admitting failure. It means losing status. And our egos will go to extraordinary lengths to avoid that realization. This is where it gets interesting from a psychological perspective. Financial anxiety isn't really about the absolute amount of money you have. It's about the gap between your current financial reality and your financial expectations. If you expect to have $20,000 in savings and you have $5,000, you feel anxious. But here's the kicker. When you earn more money, your expectations rise just as fast as your income, sometimes faster. You start thinking, I should be maxing out my retirement accounts by now. I should have a down payment saved. So even though you have more money, the gap between reality and expectation stays the same or gets wider. The anxiety persists. There's research out of Princeton that shows emotional well-being does increase with income, but only up to a point. For most people, once you hit somewhere between $75,000 and $90,000 depending on cost of living in your area, additional income doesn't significantly reduce day-to-day stress or increase happiness. Know why? Because beyond that point, most people just inflate their lifestyle to match. They're not using the extra money to buy peace of mind. They're using it to buy nicer stuff, which comes with its own set of anxieties. Now you might be thinking, okay, Ely, this is all pretty depressing. Are you saying that making more money is pointless? And no, that's not what I'm saying at all. Money absolutely matters. Poverty is stressful and dangerous and limiting in ways that are very real. Having enough money to cover basic needs plus some cushion for emergencies dramatically improves quality of life. The problem is that most people never actually build that cushion. They just keep expanding their definition of basic needs. Here's a practical example. I talked to someone recently who was making $45,000 a year and felt stressed about money. 5 years later, they're making $85,000 and they still feel exactly the same level of stress. When I asked them to break down their spending, their rent went from $900 to $1,500 a month. Their car payment went from $200 to $450. They started shopping at Whole Foods instead of Aldi, started getting their hair done at an expensive salon, started taking weekend trips. Every individual decision made sense in isolation. But collectively, they'd absorbed every penny of that $40,000 raise, and then some. Here's the thing that nobody wants to hear. You cannot earn your way out of lifestyle inflation. You cannot outpace it. I don't care if you're making $50,000 or $500,000. If you increase your spending every time you increase your income, you will never feel secure. The math just doesn't work. Say you make $60,000 a year and you save 5%, that's $3,000 a year going into savings. Now you get a $20,000 raise. You're up to $80,000. If you keep saving 5%, you're now saving $4,000 a year. Sounds good, right? But if you inflated your lifestyle by $15,000 of that $20,000 raise, your actual financial flexibility didn't improve much at all. You're still one job loss away from catastrophe. Now here's what actually works. And this is going to sound almost stupidly simple, but I promise you it's the only way out of this cycle. You have to decide what enough looks like before you earn more money. Not after. Before. You have to consciously choose a lifestyle that you can sustain comfortably on your current income, and then when you get a raise, you have to resist the urge to inflate. You have to take that extra money and direct it somewhere intentional. Pay off debt. Build an emergency fund. Increase retirement contributions. Whatever your priority is, you have to make it automatic so you don't even see that money as available for spending. Here's a concrete strategy that actually works. When you get a raise, immediately allocate at least 50% of the after-tax increase to financial priorities. 50%. So if you get a $10,000 raise, and that's about $700 a month after taxes, $350 of that goes straight to debt payoff or savings or investment before you even think about lifestyle upgrades. You can use the other $350 to improve your quality of life if you want, but you've protected half of it from lifestyle inflation. And here's the beautiful part. You still get to feel the benefit of earning more. You still get to upgrade some things. But you're also making real financial progress in a way that's going to compound over time. Let me give you the math on why this matters so much. If you're 30 years old and you take that $350 a month and put it into a retirement account earning an average of 7% annual return, by the time you're 65, that's going to be worth over $500,000. That's from one raise. One decision to not fully inflate your lifestyle. Now imagine you do this every time you get a raise over the course of your career. The difference between someone who captures half their raises for financial goals and someone who spends every increase is literally millions of dollars over a lifetime. And the wild part is, the person who saved feels basically the same level of lifestyle satisfaction as the person who spent it all, because they both adapted to their circumstances. Here's another angle on this. Financial anxiety is really about lack of control. It's about feeling like you're reactive instead of proactive. And when you earn more, but don't change your financial behavior, you're reinforcing that feeling of lack of control. You're proving to yourself that no matter how much you make, it's never quite enough. But when you get a raise and you make a conscious decision about where that money goes, you're taking control. You're proving to yourself that you can make intentional choices. And that sense of agency is what actually reduces financial anxiety, not the dollar amount. Now look, I know some of you are thinking, but Ely, I have real expenses. I have kids. I have student loans. I live in an expensive city. And I get it. I'm not saying you should live like a monk. What I'm saying is that you need to be brutally honest about the difference between necessary expenses and lifestyle inflation. Necessary expenses are things you truly need for safety, health, and basic functioning. Lifestyle inflation is everything else. And most people, if they're really honest with themselves, have a lot more inflation than they think. Here's a practical exercise you can do right now. Pull up your bank statements from 3 years ago if you still have access to them, and compare them to your statements from last month. Look at categories like dining out, entertainment, shopping, subscriptions. I'm willing to bet that unless you had a major life change, your spending in those categories has increased by way more than inflation alone would explain. That's lifestyle inflation. And the thing is, you probably don't even remember most of what you spent that money on. You're not happier because you spent an extra $2,000 on restaurants last year. You just got used to eating out more often, and now it feels normal. This is what I mean when I say we adapt. The upgrade feels amazing for a minute, and then it becomes the baseline, and you need the next upgrade to feel that same hit of satisfaction. The first time you get something new, it's exciting. By the 10th time, it's just routine. This is why people who chase lifestyle upgrades are never satisfied. The goalpost keeps moving. There's always someone with a nicer car, a bigger house, a better vacation. But here's what you can do. You can choose to get off the treadmill entirely. You can decide that your worth as a person is not tied to your consumption. You can recognize that most of the stuff you think you want is just your brain's attempt to signal status or seek novelty, and you can consciously override that impulse. I'm not saying it's easy. It's actually really hard because you're fighting against millions of years of evolutionary wiring plus decades of advertising designed to exploit those exact psychological vulnerabilities. But it's possible, and it starts with awareness. So let's bring this back to the original question. Why does earning more rarely fix financial anxiety? Because financial anxiety is not actually about the amount of money you have. It's about the relationship you have with money. It's about whether you feel in control or out of control. It's about whether you're living intentionally or just reacting to social pressure and internal impulses. And until you address that underlying relationship, more money just gives you more opportunities to make the same mistakes at a higher dollar amount. Here's what I want you to take away from this. If you're feeling financially anxious right now despite earning a decent income, the solution is probably not to earn even more. The solution is to examine where your money is actually going and why. The solution is to get really clear on what your actual values are and whether your spending reflects those values. The solution is to build systems that protect you from your own worst impulses. Automate your savings. Automate your debt payments. Automate your investments. Make the good financial behaviors the default so you have to actively choose to mess them up. And if you're about to get a raise or switch to a higher paying job, decide right now, before that money hits your account, what you're going to do with it. Write it down. Tell someone. Make a plan. Because I promise you, if you wait until after you have the money to decide, you're going to spend it. Your brain is going to find a million reasons why you deserve this thing or that thing. And 6 months from now, you're going to be wondering where it all went. Financial security is not about the number in your bank account. It's about the gap between what you earn and what you spend, and it's about having a plan for what to do with that gap. You can have that security at $60,000 a year. You can lack it at $300,000 a year. I've seen both. The difference is not the income. It's the intentionality. So if you got value from this video, if this resonated with you or made you think about your own financial situation differently, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I make videos about the psychology of money and how people actually make financial decisions. And if you want to dive deeper into this, check out the video I did on why budgets fail for most people. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.